Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha, you are watching Perspective. The National Democratic Alliance has moved a step closer to forming a government at the centre. At the Parliamentary parting meeting of the Alliance on Friday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was formally endorsed as the leader of the NDA and of the 18th Lok Sabha, expressing gratitude for being given the opportunity to serve the people once again. Prime Minister Modi vowed to continue with his efforts towards nation building. Speaking about the strength of the NDA, the Prime Minister asserted it is an organic alliance committed to the principle of nation first. He said his next government will focus on good governance, development, welfare of the poor and quality of life to all. The oath-taking ceremony will take place on the 9th of June, Sunday, with the Prime Minister at the helm for a third straight term, creating several administrative and political records. Just to name a few, he will be the first non-Congress leader to take oath as Prime Minister for a third consecutive term. In the history of independent India, Narendra Modi will become the only person to have formed a government after winning 3 consecutive Lok Sabha elections under his leadership. Also, in 75 years, he's become only the third Prime Minister to have completed 2 consecutive terms of 5 years and the only person in the political history of India to have transitioned from the Chief Minister's chair after about 13 years directly to the Prime Minister's office without taking a break. Now, for a man who's continuously been holding top administrative posts like Chief Minister and Prime Minister for almost 23 years and registered unprecedented electoral victories, what will his focus be in the third term as Prime Minister? What is his roadmap for a Viksit Bharat? All this and much more in perspective today with 2 distinguished guests joining us on the program. Let me begin by introducing them to you. Delighted to have with me in the studio Mr. Prafulla Ketkar, editor, organizer. Thank you, sir, for your time. Next to him is Mr. Sandeep Phukan, senior journalist. Welcome, Mr. Phukan, to this edition of Perspective on Sansad TV. Mr. Ketkar, before we go on to the priorities of the next government, let's first talk about some of the significant points the Prime Minister made about the NDA. He goes on to say, and especially with regard to the significance, the success, also the strength of the NDA, the Prime Minister says it's not a compulsion but commitment to the nation. Your thoughts first on the history of the NDA and now going forth their priorities.
Tina, if I have to, say kind of takeaways from Prime Minister's speech today, it can be broadly divided into 3 parts. First, he devoted a lot of his time about the legacy of NDA and what NDA stands for. As he said, whether the tribal regions, whether the southern or the northern regions, whether northeast, everywhere NDA as an alliance has proved to be a successful experiment, and it is the longest successful experiment in independent India as a coalition. So, his commitment towards this coalition experiment, because since the day final results are announced of the Lok Sabha election, there has been talk about how far Prime Minister Modi will be comfortable in handling the coalition. So, he was very, very clear, and to his greater comfort, I think Mr. Nitish Kumar and Mr. Chandrababu Naidu or Mr. Chirag Paswan, all these people also gave a clear-cut indication that they are going to be there with Prime Minister, giving him a free hand about the policies. Right. Secondly, I think another important aspect that he spoke about the parliamentary debates, though he passed on some remarks about the Congress behavior and the opposition behavior. What he said is very significant. In Hindi, he said, सरकार चलाने के लिए तो बहुमत जरूरी है, देश चलाने के लिए हम सर्वमत का प्रयास करेंगे. Now, that is a very important message that he tried to give.
Sure. We'll come to that and the expectations that he has from the new parliamentarians. But let's just get in Mr. Phukan's thoughts also on the NDA that the Prime Minister spoke about, and setting aside all rumors, all reports about the coalition government not being able to complete 5 years, what was visible was a bonhomie, and what Mr. Ketkar also suggested, that the weight of the NDA allies behind the Prime Minister, the way Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, Mr. Nitish Kumar endorsed the Prime Minister and his vision, it looks like this government will sail through 5 years, not just, complete the term, but they will achieve what they will set for themselves, the targets that they will set for themselves.
That is the expectation. Obviously, of course, the opposition would be putting pressure on them, but the expectation is that this government will complete its term, comfortably, because as Mr. Ketkar said, and as you have also pointed out, see, this is not an unnatural alliance. It's both. Of course, it's true that both Mr. Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu have walked out on different issues, but both of them have been long term allies. It's not just that they were not part of the National Democratic Alliance only in 2014. They were part of NDA when former Prime Minister late Atal Bihari Vajpayee led the NDA alliance. Mr. Naidu was present then and part of the NDA, a very crucial member. And Mr. Nitish Kumar, we all know he had a special bond, a special relationship with Mr. Vajpayee, was the railway minister. So, quite clearly that it's not as if completely new alliance partners have come together and they are trying out an experiment. But having said this, yes, every coalition is a new, completely new entity, a new exercise in the making. So, there would be some issues on which there would be differences. Just yesterday we saw that one issue that came up where the Janata Dal United put forward its view that they want to rethink or some kind of rethink on the Agniveer scheme. So, look, these are no party will be exactly similar in terms of their approach, in terms of their ideology, in terms of their political goal.
You're right. That is where the challenges and difficulties will be
arise
in a coalition government.
Having said this, I think, I mean, I wouldn't call this an unnatural alliance, but given the fact that in recent times both these, see, why is this talk, why are we even discussing this, that as Mr. Ketkar rightly pointed out, that there were a lot of questions whether Prime Minister Modi will be able to handle this alliance or not. It's only because what was the difference between the first two terms and this term? In the first two terms, they were also NDA governments, but the BJP had massive majority of its own. So, in the decision making process, the others did not really matter. They would be kept informed, but their consensus is, I mean, whether they are in or out, it did not matter because the government was very stable on its own.
And that is why all the importance now, Mr. Ketkar, comes to the NDA. The Prime Minister gives an altogether new description of the NDA. He says new India, developed India, aspirational India. So, if we look at this new alliance, and the Prime Minister has tried to infuse new energy into the alliance, also emotionally connecting it to the time when Mr. Vajpayee was at the helm. So, for the next 5 years, what are the priorities, the key priorities that you see for the NDA setting for itself?
See, means as far as I see this, I don't think as far as the broad economic and infrastructural policies that Prime Minister had initiated for inclusive growth, I don't think there is going to be a major change in that. It will be only, moving forward. Especially Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, he always likes to be known as a development man. Earlier also when he was, Chief Minister of United Andhra, he was the one who was known for creating this Cyberabad, and so he always, in that sense, it will be very comfortable for him. Mr. Nitish Kumar will be looking for, today in his speech also he spoke about specifically about Bihar, and he said the work that is going on will move forward. So, he will be having special concerns about Bihar, because ultimately being a regional party, he will have more focus on the state.
And all this while when their demand has already been placed, special status for Andhra.
And so, I don't see much of a reason. But the question is, the people who were talking about, or expecting very radical kind of, where will the issues come? The issues will arise only about the core ideological, BJP's ideological agenda. So, whether BJP can move forward freely when it comes to the experimenting with UCC, which is already introduced in Uttarakhand or is proposed in Gujarat. So, how is it going to happen? A critical question of whether some kind of judicial reforms will be there. So, all these things will have pulls and pressures, but when it comes to the direction in terms of foreign policy, in terms of economic policy, and in terms of major schemes related to social inclusion, I don't see much of a change in that. It will be more sort of continuity, and Prime Minister Modi's stamp will be there on it. He will be looking forward for reaching out to the sections, areas, regions where BJP has a little bit of setback, and he will go for it. Today's speech was a clear-cut indication when he spoke about the ministerial berths also, that ultimately he is going to take a call and he is going to be at the helm of affairs. So, that messaging was very clear. So, he was on the one hand very accommodative when it comes to giving space to the allies, and at the same time he asserted himself that with 240 seats also, Prime Minister Modi is going to remain Prime Minister Modi.
Okay, Mr. Phukan, the fact that when it comes to issues of development, the allies will be on the same page, because just like Prime Minister Modi is known as Vikas Purush, so is Nitish Kumar and Mr. Naidu. In their own regions, they also have a similar image of putting development first. The fact is, which are the areas where Prime Minister or the BJP will have a problem or will face challenges in achieving unanimity?
No, I actually completely endorse and second Mr. Ketkar's view. I don't see, as we often say, continuity and change. So, I think that in terms of development trajectory of the government, there will be continuity. There will be special key focus areas, in my opinion. The government may not have acknowledged it for obvious reasons, political reasons, but there are issues like Mehengai, price rise, inflation. There are issues like scaling up employment opportunities, whether it's employment, self-employment or employment in the formal sector. So, these are issues that the government will have to take a relook. Upscaling of skills, these are issues that they will have to relook and then work with their allies, and I don't see these issues becoming a problem at all. Which political party, for example, would object to the BJP or any government for that matter trying to increase employment or bring down prices or give more welfare schemes? That shouldn't be an issue. I think the issues will be on ideological issues. For example, if the BJP had numbers of their own or on their own more than 400, then they would have experimented with the Uniform Civil Code, and we've seen several judicial reforms. He talked about one nation, one election. Of course, mind you, both these parties have actually on record said that they support the idea of simultaneous elections. That was also one of the big ideas. The report is ready. But then, that also requires, if I recall correctly, I think the COVID panel report had suggested at least 6 constitutional amendments. So, whether without at least a section of the opposition coming on board, whether that is possible, that is something one will have to wait and see. So, on these issues, issues which are at the intersection of policy and ideology, there may be challenges. For example, one issue that I can think of, I mentioned Agniveer. Of course, it's not a bitter divide, but it will obviously be an issue on which the JDU has already sort of placed its view. So, it is now for the government to respond. The government in the run up to the election, I recall Rajnath Singh, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's interview, where he said that we are open to suggestions. So, there has to be a spirit of accommodation. As I said, the big difference is
there will be pulls and plugs that we will see in the days to come.
Yeah, because decision making has to be collective, certainly, where the numbers of the allies will matter. So, but as far as I see, unless it's some huge major policy issues that has ideological underpinnings, there shouldn't be too many difficulties.
So, Mr. Ketkar, when the Prime Minister says it's time to take tough decisions, I recall in his first speech after the declaration of results, he did say it from the party headquarters that it's time that we have clarity, we have confidence, and we have to take tough decisions. What are the kind of measures that you expect the Prime Minister or the new NDA government to take when it comes to charting the tougher areas?
See, Teena, now the role of and I would be really interested, how does this NDA coordination committee takes place? Because there now the major churning and decision making and pulls and pressures will work, not in the cabinet itself. And of course, most probably Mr. Nitish Kumar, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu being out of the cabinet and at the handling their own states. So it will be more sort of NDA thing. Now, as far as when I go as per the BJP manifesto, whether these people have problems about what Prime Minister asserted today about comfort of ease of living for each and every section, and but interestingly he spoke at least 2 to 3 times today on middle class. So, will these two allies have major problem? No. But how will the schemes and the programs will be devised? For me, the most interesting part would be not actually one nation, one election, because that won't be a major immediate priority agenda for BJP also with this kind of mandate.
Yeah.
What would be interesting and important is how does this government approaches the entire exercise of delimitation and implementation of Women's Reservation Bill, because there 2 issues will come up. One, within Women's Reservation, whether there will be reservation. At one point Nitish Kumar had his own views and very strict views about quota within quota.
Separate quota for OBC.
Second dimension to it is very unfortunate that it has happened during the elections, but especially started at the time of Karnataka Assembly elections, where this some kind of north versus south divide is being tried. And till now, and remember in the year 2000, when the new delimitation was due, and it was supposed to be based on the 1991 census. It was Mr. Chandrababu Naidu who suggested Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee not to go for it, because with the same kind of formula of population based representation, it is the southern states who would be losing at least few seats here and there. Now with this Women's Reservation Bill coming and factually all the seats increasing, it is relatively easier to implement the delimitation. What would be the formula? Whether the existing seats that we have today, straight away 33% will be applied to it, or based on the, instead of 1976 basis, will have a 2011 or 2001 census as the base. The moment that happens, there will be pulls and pressures from the south, and then Chandrababu Naidu will be representing the southern aspiration. There I feel will be real. So, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi and BJP will must have already thought through about this, and they will work out some formula, because I remember when this bill was passed, there was a remark by Mr. Amit Shah as well as Prime Minister Modi that we will work out a formula where there will be no injustice to any of the regions in India.
Let's hope they do, because it was after several decades and much awaited that the bill, the Women's Reservation Bill, actually sailed through. But now to see it coming back to the drawing board and discuss, I mean, with parties now playing major roles in how it's going to be implemented, it's not just the BJP that's steering it, it's going to be difficult. Coming back to the other aspect of the EVMs that was interestingly brought up by the Prime Minister, Mr. Phukan, he of course took on the opposition and he said till the 4th, I mean, until the results began to trickle in, the poor EVM was the target of everyone. But with the results, hopefully that has been quelled. Do you think that the unnecessary controversy regarding EVMs has been put to rest and we're not going to hear of it anymore?
I think this time around the opposition, even in the run up to the election, they had not really, barring 1 or 2 leaders, nobody had really questioned the EVM. I think the bone of contention was the tallying the VVPAT, the voter verifiable audit trail slips with the EVM machines. Now, what the opposition wanted was that every EVM should have a VVPAT machine, and then
it should be 100% tallied.
And it should be 100% tallied, every machine. To which, of course, the commission did not agree, and the matter went to Supreme Court, and because it was in the middle of the election, that is why there was no decision on that, and it was sent back.
No, it is very interesting. It's not that there was no decision. Supreme Court said.
No, they have actually.
Supreme Court said you can go ahead with this, but it will be only on the basis of demand from a particular candidate or a party in each constituency, and for which the expenses for that counting will have to be borne by the candidate and the party.
Candidate, yes. So, but I mean, when I said no decision means there was no blanket decision that the opposition demand was not accepted, that every constituency, every machine has to be tallied 100%. But I mean, if you set aside this controversy, I think this election, what it proves is that our process is very robust. And because look, we are only journalists, we are commentators, we can comment from outside, but the political parties are stakeholders in this process, so they have to be far more responsible. If an MP or a chief minister or somebody makes a wild allegation which he cannot substantiate, then it becomes problematic, and you are questioning the entire process.
Exactly, and deriding the institution that has been working tirelessly, seamlessly.
And you've been part of it. You win or lose, but you've been part of the system. It's you.
And brings a bad name to the institution.
So I think
the democratic process.
Unless they have some definitive proof, where you have a definitive proof, I mean, I am not saying that the political parties should not criticize the election commission. Of course, you should. I mean, if things are not going correct, if things are not right, or if you think that things are biased, you can always raise your point of view. But all I am saying is that when it comes to criticizing the process, you have to be very responsible.
But
you all are stakeholders.
On the rigging of the EVMs, that matter.
No, see, actually, this was not this simple. This was much more greater plan. Little bit of numbers here and there, it would have been havoc by now, I assure you.
We did hear a few leaders.
Not just few leaders. See, the things were going on at 3 levels. The first was about actually the what Mr. Kapil Sibal and what Mr. Bhupesh Baghel was trying to do. They were actually questioning the entire process of EVM swapping. Bhupesh Baghel, just before counting day on the evening, released data.
He had tweeted, yes,
saying that the numbers that were used for the voting and the numbers that are actually, what he was showing was actually the dummy voting thing, and when the EVM is not properly functional, it has to be changed. So he was confusing, or rather trying to create confusion about this. What Mr. Kapil Sibal was trying to do was about actually with some NGOs trying to organize a training process for, and he was releasing videos after videos about what should we do at the polling station, how to actually find out the discrepancy, and he was not ready to accept the Form 17C data. That itself was creating a lot of confusion. So one level was about the election commission, 2 about the efficacy of Mr. Akhilesh Yadav on the record said that if we come to power, we will go back to the ballot boxes. So it was not so simple. But third more important part is, there was a French newspaper, there was an American agency-led media house who was constantly talking about this and creating a question mark about the outcome.
That when these courts are picked up by the international agencies, and the entire procedure, the entire procedure of the Indian democracy is questioned.
So when Congress party gave a call to its workers on the eve of counting that tomorrow you should gather at the party offices in every state and we should be ready for any eventuality, it was not very easy thing. Little bit of NDA getting majority, BJP not getting full majority on its own has in fact saved country from different kind of chaos that we would have experienced. But having said this, election commission has a credibility. The role of election commission was questioned, and remember, right from Mr. Rahul Gandhi to internationally acclaimed YouTubers repeatedly said on the record that Supreme Court Chief Justice has been removed from the selection panel. Historically, it was never there. But this lie was peddled time and again. So you create a suspicion, and that suspicion is enough in democracy. So it was a very orchestrated kind of psychological thing that was created. But with these numbers, perhaps they didn't have much to counter either EVMs or election commission. So fortunately, democracy is safe and EVMs are safe now.
Okay. So I think we'll have to quickly move.
I mean, you talked about international publications. Look, it's our democracy, it's our process. I wouldn't take them seriously, but as I said, if a former chief minister who is a candidate, if he puts out a tweet making an allegation, that's serious. And
especially in this age of social media, when I mean everything is bought by the common man. You have the smartphone, you're watching a video, you don't question the credibility of that video. You just take in the information and you
especially when somebody who has been at a very responsible position of power, when it comes, see, if it's just anybody, a YouTuber, why would I take seriously? But if I, as a journalist, if I see a former chief minister raising this, I would take it seriously. So
and former law minister.
The point is that you will have to be careful in what you say, because you all are stakeholders. As journalists, we will do our job. We will point out that this is happening, that is happening.
And if you make a claim, you need to substantiate it with credible evidence. I mean, perhaps that's the biggest lesson. Very quickly, let me take away this discussion away from the EVMs to one hope that the Prime Minister did generate today with his speech. He said, "Sarkarein to number se banti hongi, lokmat se, lekin sarvmat se सदन चलेगा और देश आगे बढ़ेगा." That's a significant step. That's hope that especially when it comes to issues concerning the nation and its development, we are, I mean, he's laid a roadmap for Viksit Bharat. So it requires every stakeholder to follow that. Can we expect, especially on issues of national interest, a very constructive debate in Parliament? Because for the past several years, what we've been seeing is, wastage of precious time in Parliament. The opposition walks out, there are protests over trivial issues, but the important issues somehow take backstage. Can we expect, I mean, that's a question to both of you, very quick responses. To you first.
Well, I think if you look at politics, is also about messaging. So I think in the speech at the NDA meeting, Prime Minister gave out two clear messages. One message was, as Mr. Ketkar pointed out, very subtly when it comes to formation of his Council of Ministers, very subtly he sent this message that I am the boss. Right, I am still in charge, and I may not have 272, but I will take the call, right. So, which means that that's a subtle message that we will not give in to pressures or blackmails of allies. So, that's one message. In the same speech, the other message is, well, you need majority to run the government, but I would like to reach out beyond the majority. So, this is an outreach to the opposition, to all those who are, who are not, I mean, who are political adversaries, but parliamentary system and democracy is such that you take decisions together. And
with a formidable opposition now, Mr. Ketkar, do we expect, and can we expect more constructive debates which is in the interest of the people and the country at large?
You are talking about wastage of time and money in the Parliament, but the main opposition leader would ask you to wear BJP's T-shirt for that. So I am not very hopeful, simply because now this Congress and regional parties, especially Samajwadi Party and TMC, having a bigger mandate in their respective pockets, will be much more. Till now they had only one option to walk out. Now they can create real ruckus in the Parliament with those kind of numbers. And the way he has now, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has demanded for JPC on the issue of stock market fluctuation on the counting day, and the way he is accusing, he is actually creating ground for the first session itself. So I'm not, and the way he has talked about the caste census agenda throughout the campaign, constitution will be thrown out, reservations will go away. So, if he has built entire momentum around these issues, then he will have to somewhere show that he is still talking about those issues. So, that will be somewhere there very strongly in the parliament. Of course, now relatively in Rajya Sabha, the government is in much comfortable position than the earlier one. But in Lok Sabha, that kind of majority is not there, and with having allies, many people are talking about Mr. Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu. For me, if you ask me, people like Mr. Pawan Kalyan or Mr. Chirag Paswan are equally important, and they will be much more trusted allies for Prime Minister when it comes to the position. For example, whether transparent examinations for various public service commissions or separate law for against paper leaks. These are the commitments that Prime Minister has given in his speeches also. BJP has spoken about it in his manifesto also. I think that will be one of the major focus areas, especially considering the trend in Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, this Hindi belt. So, there will be, you will need. So, what Prime Minister said, Sarvamat, is more about the consensus building. And there, I think on certain issues, DMK can come on board. On some issues, even TMC can come on board. There will be, Samajwadi Party, for some time at least, it will be difficult. One, because they need, very strong this kind of, because they have seen what transfers is possible with Congress as an ally. So, it will be very difficult to break away from the Congress's position in the parliament. But and also, till Vidhan Sabha election, they will have to go ahead with this alliance. But on certain issues, like for example, if the government tries to do kind of bidding for 2036 Olympics, there will be many more parties who would be coming together.
I think on many issues we've seen, covering the parliament, on many issues we've seen even Congress agreeing with the government position, even in the previous.
On issues like the country bidding for Olympics, I am sure no party would like to.
Even in the previous Lok Sabha, in the 17th Lok Sabha also, we've seen even Congress and BJP coming together on financial bills, on taxation matters. So
several landmark bills also.
Yeah. So
how does GST thing work out now on various items? That would be very interesting.
That will also be interesting.
That's
right.
Though structurally it has been always the center and all the finance ministers of all the states, they actually collectively take the decision. But when it comes to the political messaging over it, it has always been problematic.
Right. So, consensus building towards nation building, that's the mantra with which the NDA government led by Prime Minister Modi is going forth. But how the opposition reacts to it and how the opposition actually takes it, especially in the upcoming parliament sessions, is something that only time will tell. For now, we'll have to wrap up the discussion. Thank you to both my guests once again for joining me on the program and for such an interesting discussion, putting forth their perspective on the program. And thank you very much to you viewers for your valuable time. That's it from us on the program.